Okay, so I know we're just getting started, but let's rewind a second and think about what just happened. And what just happened is you just hit that play button like just a moment ago, right? And now here you are listening to these words. And before you hit that play button, like just a few moments before that moment, just a few moments ago, presumably you were doing something else. And something else before that. You could even say that all this stuff that happened for you earlier today have brought you right up to here. Now, listening to these words. In fact, a whole string of events and circumstances all seem to have lined up in just the right way to have brought you right up to that very last moment that just ended a few moments ago. And now that moment just ended. Like, remember? It was just a moment ago, a fraction of a second ago. And now that moment just ended, and that one, and that one, and that one. And all of that has left us here, now, faced with the baffling yet eternal question, now what? Here we are. And now, what? Where do we go from here? Think of a timeline, and it's stretching back, not just through all the things that happened for you today, but all the way back into yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. And then it's stretching further, like way beyond, all the way back to the moment you were born, and then even further, beyond even that, all the way back to the beginning of beginnings. So from all the way back to right up to here, now. So perhaps you see this timeline in front of you, and there's a big fat red line slicing through the middle, cutting right through the center of this now moment in time. And everything that has happened right up until now is on the left side of the line. So if you think about the stuff that happened before, like you hit that play button, and before that you were doing something else, well, all of that's on the left side of that line. That's what has happened. And then everything else that has happened is even further to the left of this line, right? So everything that has happened right up until now is on the left side of the big fat red line. And then on the right side is everything that hasn't happened yet. On the left side is history. On the right side is future. In the middle is you, straddling the red line dividing what has been from what still may be. Now, the funny thing is, in this moment, what has been doesn't exist. Even that last moment, if you still remember it, a fraction of a second ago. Now, here, it doesn't exist. Nothing on the left side actually exists here. And everything on the right side of the line, well, that doesn't exist either. So we seem to find ourselves perpetually in this strange and mystical place where past and future meet, a meeting point of two worlds which don't exist. And it seems like we're moving away from or coming out of that left side, which is history, and facing toward the right, the future, and then moving into it. But how do you move toward or into something which doesn't exist? Or out of or away from something which doesn't exist? I would suggest it's an optical illusion. Because, in fact, you never actually go anywhere, since everywhere you go, you're still always right here, now. So rather than getting to the future it seems more accurate to think that the future is always coming here, always arriving here, a perpetual unfolding, moment by moment by moment. Hey, you ever play one of those third-person role-playing video games like Zelda or Super Mario? You know, where you're seeing your character from back or from above, and the character's in the center of the screen, and you then sort of direct him throughout his adventures. It seems then as if when you push the joystick forward, back or left or right or whatever, the character then moves forward, back, left or right, or even up and down. Maybe he's walking or running or jumping or tumbling forward, back, left, right, up, down. And yet, despite all that stuff that he's doing, despite all that movement, you'll notice our hero always remains in the center of the screen. In fact, as he's running in place. So he isn't, in fact, moving through time and space. Time and space are moving through him. Events, objects, experiences, obstacles, friends and foes all come to join him, moment by moment by moment, in this perpetual unfolding in the center of the screen. Okay, so 1 + 1 is 2. I bet you knew that already. So let's just start from the basics. 1 + 1 is 2. And as you're looking at this mathematical equation, we could say, you can see that the 2 couldn't exist without the 1s. The 1 added to the 1 created the 2. And now that the 2 exists, it creates the potential for 3. As the potential of 3 gets fulfilled, it creates the potential for 4. And so on and so on. Potentials being fulfilled. And the fulfillment of those potentials then create new potentials. As the infant fulfills her potential to walk, the potential to run has now been born. Yes? So, everything you ever experienced has brought you here. Every thought you ever thunk, every feeling you ever felt, every impression that was ever left on your mind. Once upon a time, all those things existed only in potential. As each of those potentials were fulfilled, it left you in a new place. All of them together, some combination of a billion, a trillion, an infinite number of physical and maybe even non-physical conditions, have all added up to right now, right here, on the leading edge of space and time. The culmination of all potentials which have ever been fulfilled, the sum total of all that ever was, giving birth to the potential of all that ever will be. Carl Sagan said, if you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first create the universe. So, everything on the left side of the line has brought you right up to here, and we seem to have found ourselves in one heck of an apple pie. But notice how all of it is still on the left side of that big, fat, red line. So now here in this moment, in this new moment, here now, you remember me mentioning Carl Sagan a moment ago, and he was talking about apple pies and stuff. But, shit, look around. That moment isn't happening anywhere now. You could maybe rewind this and listen to it again, but even then, that would be a new moment unto itself. And, some ways of thinking would argue that actually that past moment in time still exists. For example, you could see the moments of your life as, let's say, the frames of a movie. If you look at the frames of a movie, you can see that all the frames exist at once. But as you're watching the movie, it's like you're a passenger through those frames. You're just seeing them one at a time, and the experience then from inside the movie is being experienced as being a passenger through time. Even though the full length of the movie exists all at once, the movement through the frames causes an experience of time. So even if we were to agree that these past moments still have some kind of existence, even then, in whatever frame we find ourselves currently, that previous frame is nowhere to be found. Nothing on the left side of the line is anywhere to be found. And everything is on the left side of the line. The following are the first few lines of Clarice Lispector's short story, The Egg and the Chicken. And it goes something like this. In the morning, the egg is lying on the kitchen table. I see the egg at a single glance. I immediately perceive that I cannot be simply seeing an egg. Seeing an egg is always in the present. No sooner do I see the egg than I have seen an egg. The same egg which has existed for 3,000 years. The very instant an egg is seen, it becomes the memory of an egg. The only person to see an egg is someone who has seen it before, like a man who, in order to understand the present, must have had a past. Upon seeing the egg, it is already too late. An egg seen is an egg lost. Once again, that's a little excerpt from a short story called The Egg and the Chicken by an amazing Brazilian writer, Clarice Lispector. Go check her out. She's written some really cool stuff. So, in other words, in the moment of perceiving something, it's already a memory. In this moment, your senses are bringing in information. You're hearing my voice, and you're probably hearing other stuff in your environment. That's auditory data, vibrations emanating from speakers or headphones through the air being received by your eardrums. The brain processes the signal from the ear and organizes that data into an experience that you can understand. The same thing is going on with your eyes. Presumably you're looking at something right now, which means visual data is entering through your eyes, and the brain is processing the data that's coming through the optic nerve and then organizes it in a way you can understand. So you aren't actually seeing with your eyes. What you're seeing is a picture created by your mind. As infants first open their eyes, they're only perceiving light, shapes, contrasts. Their brain hasn't yet figured out how to code and process all that incoming data in a way that it can make sense of it. So this is where learning begins. We begin recognizing patterns within the incoming data. And as your recognition of those patterns get more nuanced, you start recognizing more and more detailed patterns, more complex patterns, and learning gets more and more sophisticated. So, as an infant is just learning how to tell apart basic sounds, a professional musician could pick out a G-sharp minor by ear, for example. The interesting thing is the infant ears are actually able to distinguish between far more data than the adult. There's just such an overwhelming amount of data coming in that in order to process it effectively, it has to organize it into more convenient buckets. So in some languages like Japanese or Korean, they don't have an R or an L sound like we have in a lot of Western languages, but they have a different consonant which falls somewhere in between. So as the infant Japanese mind is noticing sounds and the mind begins to organize them, all the R-like sounds and all the L-like sounds fall into the same bucket. At some point, their ears are no longer able to distinguish between R and L. To an ear that's been trained in this way, the words rock and lock would sound exactly the same. And I say all that to say this. Even basic perception is learned through external impressions made upon the mind. Your senses bring in information, and the mind organizes that information according to how it's learned to process that information. You're never actually perceiving reality directly. Everything you experience through a filter. a processing system that lives within the unconscious mind, meaning outside of your conscious awareness. Everything you experience is the product of how your unconscious mind is processing information. And it's all on the left side of the line. All perception is on the left side of the line, at least perception through the five senses. All of that is going on the left side of the line. It's kind of like you're sitting in the back seat of this car and you're looking out the rear windshield and you're kind of watching the road and the landscape roll out from underneath you, and then it disappears behind the horizon. And then as you're watching through this back windshield, you see this tree by the side of the road. And in the very next moment, the tree is further away, right? And the further you go, the further it appears that the tree is from you. So that's kind of like exactly where you're sitting now. Every moment that passes instantly becomes history. By the time you're aware of anything, it's already history. And with each passing moment, that moment moves further and further away. The illusion is we think we're looking out the front windshield. But everything we're able to perceive belongs to history, including our thoughts and feelings. Even our thoughts about the future only exist in the past. Everything we perceive, both outer and inner experience, is on the left side of the line. And here, now, none of it exists. So, what do we need to do about something which doesn't exist? Let me ask you that again. What do we need to do about something which doesn't exist? In order to get where we want to go, is there anything about where we have been that needs to be fixed, changed, or controlled? Not only is there no need to fix, change, or control something which doesn't exist, it's also not possible. I mean, don't believe me? Try it. Go ahead and have something different for breakfast yesterday. Hurry up. Go ahead and put on a different pair of pants this morning. Not only can't you do it, it actually doesn't matter. What matters is, where do we go from here? Now, what? Now, as you look toward the right side of the line, what do you see? And I'll tell you, what you see is your expectation. And expectation isn't what you're hoping is going to happen. Expectation is what you believe is going to happen. And what is that belief based on? The answer is history. The belief about what's going to happen, your expectation, is based on history. In other words, the left side of the line. Because history is your only point of reference. It's the only place you've been looking your entire life. What else could you possibly base your expectation on? You can't actually see what's ahead when you're looking out the back window. Let's say for the past 6 years, your next door neighbor has been ringing your doorbell every morning at 8:30 a.m. in order to hit you in the head with a stick. You might be expecting them to show up tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. holding a stick. Expectation based on history. But if we actually look at the timeline, we can see right away that every single instance of your neighbor hitting you in the head with sticks is on the left side of the line, along with everything else that ever happened. So I guess the next question is, how the hell do we steer this fucking car? How do we make it go where we want it to go? And before I tell you that, let me show you how most people attempt to do it. They're looking out the back windshield and they see some stuff they like, they see some stuff they don't like. Automatically, then, an expectation forms based on what they're looking at. The mind automatically starts to fill in the right side of the line. So let's say this guy sees an awful accident on the side of the road. a car has smashed into a tree. The mind figures, hey, we better make sure that doesn't happen. Let's make sure to avoid trees. And the right side of the line starts filling in with all kinds of trees which we better avoid. The observation of history creates an expectation of more of the same. The primary objective of this journey quickly becomes, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree. And then they're trying to exert more and more effort, discipline, and willpower in order to make sure they don't hit any trees. So they're attempting to move forward by reacting to what has been. And whatever they're trying to avoid, they become more and more sensitive to. So now anything that remotely resembles a tree blows way up in their mind, occupying more and more of their focus and attention. And you've heard people say, where attention goes, energy flows. What you focus on expands. Next thing you know, they're making a beeline straight toward the next tree. And this is exactly what I see when I look at how most people live their lives. It's what we might diagnose as normal. And I mean, imagine being in that position, looking out a rear windshield, but believing you're looking through the front windshield, and from there, attempting to steer the car. And I don't blame anyone for not being very good at that. It's a pretty tricky position to be in. But now that we know that's our position, at least as a way of thinking about it, right? We can then become a whole lot more effective in our navigation. Now, every time you experienced something that you didn't like, a preference was formed. Less of that, please. And every time you experienced something you did like, a preference was formed. More of that, please. The contrasts of your life experience has carved out a unique set of preferences. Combined, those preferences form a vision, unique to you, of what life can be. So when I was learning how to be a DJ, it took me about 1.5 years to start honing in on something I could think of as my own style, like my own groove, the kind of stuff I really liked. But in order to do that, I had to listen to thousands of songs that I didn't like, so I could find the kind of songs that I really did like. Just like someone learning how to be a chef has to taste lots of different ingredients to find the precise combination of tastes and textures that they really like. Contrasts give birth to preferences, which in turn gives birth to a vision, a new potential born. 1 + 1 is 2, and now here comes 3. So this man wakes up at 3:30 in the morning. It's pitch black and bitter cold outside. But there's a big, stupid smile plastered onto his face as he's getting ready, loading his luggage into the car, scraping the frost off the windshield, and then he commences his drive toward the airport, shivering in his seat before the car has warmed up. And yet, there's that stupid smile on his face. And he's still cold as he's getting patted down by airport security, still tired as he's shuffling into the cramped plane and then into his cramped middle row seat, and he's just kind of squeezed in there. Service is shitty and the people are rude and the peanuts are like $15. And yet, this smile remains plastered onto his face. Why? Because he's on the way. He's on the way to vacation. Despite what's going on in his immediate environment, the man is smiling because he's on the way to where he intends to be. Notice how the emotion falls in line with the expectation. So if somebody's expecting that in 15 minutes from now, somebody's going to hit them in the head with a stick, and there's nothing they can do about it, they're probably not feeling so great. On the other hand, if you're anticipating that in 15 minutes, someone's going to give you $10 million, you're probably feeling pretty good. emotion falls in line with expectation. And then action and behavior fall in line with the emotion. So we do what we feel like, right? And when we feel like there's some kind of threat, when the mind is perceiving some kind of threat, it gets real motivated to do something about that threat, like running away or attacking. So all those feelings, the stuff going on in the body, feeling, emotion, sensation, they're literally designed to cause action. So if a rabbit is feeling afraid, that fear is designed to cause the rabbit to run really fast. If you've ever experienced the sensation of hunger, that sensation is designed to cause you to eat. So all of our unconscious processes automatically begin to organize toward what it is we expect. The issue is that expectation has been based on history. The left side of the line has bled through to the right side. Then, emotions were caused to happen, designed to get us to do something about that expectation. And then we take actions, constantly reacting to what has been, to what no longer exists, and in so doing, recreating the past. You create what you expect. When what you expect is based on history, you recreate the same shit again and again and again. When what you expect is based on your intention rather than history, that's the moment everything changes. Let me say that again. The moment you start basing expectation on intention rather than history is the moment everything changes. When the vision of new potential becomes the basis for your future expectation, that's the moment the shift is underway. This podcast is an audio experience designed to, over time, cause certain shifts to take place within your unconscious mind, so that the way you automatically think, feel, and act comes into alignment with your greatest vision, mission, and purpose. As that is taking place, which is what is taking place at this moment, you will notice your thoughts, feelings, actions, even your automatic reactions, falling in line just the way you want them to, where you're automatically, effortlessly thinking what you want to think, feeling what you want to feel, doing what you want to do, and living the life you want to live. My name is Linus Rylander. Welcome to the Manifest Momentum Experience. Now what?